Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Linux Basics Live course webinar. In this webinar, we are going to understand exactly what is covered in this course and how can it help you to gain the basics knowledge of Linux and gain some confidence in using Linux in like a day-to-day life, right? So this webinar is about the live course that we generally have for 8 weeks duration, and then we cover from the very basics all the way to the configuration, installation, and using it day to day. But if you really want to get in depth and want to go for certifications like RHCE Red Hat Certified System Administrator and RHCE Red Hat Certified Engineer, we have a 52 weeks 0 to Linux program as well, which is a pre-recorded program where you get the recordings every week, but you do get support there as well. So this one we are going to concentrate on the live program that we have for 2 months or 8 weeks duration. So I'm going to explain you the structure of this course and what are we going to cover into this and what is expected from us and what is expected from you if you join this course, right? So one thing that anytime you have any questions, you can actually book a call or schedule a Zoom session. So I've just pasted something into the chat, so you can actually copy that and keep it with you, because maybe after the webinar is finished, you might not be able to access the chat. So copy the link so that you can book a call, a Zoom session with Christian if you have more questions. So if you want like a detailed one-to-one discussion with all your queries and questions, technical or non-technical, after the webinar, you can book a Zoom session with Christian for that. Right? So let's give me a minute, then we start. All right, so let's get started. First of all, my let me introduce myself. My name is Arpit Pandit. I have been in training in this industry for more than 18 years, and I have trained a lot of different things. It started with Windows and Linux, and then I also trained Cisco courses, CCNA, CCNP, CCIE, and Juniper as well. So uh, I have a particular passion for training. So you will see that most of the time that when I try to explain something, I always use the structure of what is the technology, why do we need it, and then how exactly can we configure it. So when we answer these three basic questions, if you are completely new as well, it becomes very easy to get on board and start understanding these concepts, right? So let's get started. What exactly do we cover in this course, Linux Basics Live? So the course structure itself would be once a week, because we want to make sure that you get ample time to not only understand the technologies, but also then all the command line or CLI, the configuration that you will do, the practice that you will do, you get some time to do it yourself as well. And for that, we have this 1 week gap after every live Zoom session. So I'm going to explain you some topics in the live Zoom session, then you will have 1 week to do the same practice, because most of you are working professionals as well, so you don't get whole day, or every day you might not get time, so you have ample time to actually practice everything and then come back with more confidence and more comfort with the earlier technologies already covered. The session will be 2 hours per the session will be of 2 hour duration, so 2 hours per session. It's an 8 weeks course, because as I mentioned that this course is the live course where we will join every week and we will discuss about the Linux command structure and basic commands and some level of advanced commands as well. And if you want to really go for the certifications and want to go really in depth, we do have a program which takes you from zero all the way to RHCSA certification and then RHCE certification as well. And there you have the full-fledged exam-like labs as well, mock labs you can call them, which are included into the course. But this one is a live course to get you on board on Linux. So if you are hesitant, or if you know Linux here and there, but you want to bridge the basic gaps, then this course can be perfect for you. And that's why it is a completely hands-on course. Right from the first day, we start getting our hands dirty with the configuration, with implementation, and all the tools will be provided, or we will assist you that how you can actually acquire the tools to start practicing. We know that Linux is open source, so Linux itself is free. You can download it from many different distributions which are available. We will discuss about distros as well today, just to give you a basic idea about this. But also recommend you when you start the course that which one would be a good fit to start. So that's why the software, OS images, and lab instructions along with the solutions are provided in this course. So lab instruction and solution means that every week we are going to learn new commands and new topics like security permissions of Linux, creating user accounts, group accounts, or installing packages, or the basic system management, listing the files or sorting the files, finding out the difference between files, or finding information, finding stuff, finding files. So all these things, when I explain you, I'm going to send you the documentation for that as well, so that you also have the record of all the of the command, all the commands and options we used, and you can always refer to it when you are practicing on your own. And these live Zoom sessions are recorded. So this is one of the unique things about this course, is that access to these recordings will be available on the course web portal. So whenever you miss a particular day, or if you just want to go through it again, you can always go and watch these recordings. And these recordings will be available for lifetime access. So you don't need to worry that if you are late, or if you are currently busy in something and you want to check it later, and it will be gone. There is no time limit to this, right? So you have lifetime access to the class recording. Also, you will get the membership to the Facebook community group we have, where you can ask questions, and there are so many different students from different parts of technology and different level of experience. They will be more than happy to assist you. I will be more than happy to assist you there as well. And maybe the question you asked can benefit other students as well. That's why we created that group. Or you, whenever you're watching the recordings from the portal, there also you have a comment section where you can ask questions, which can come directly, which comes directly to me as well. So you can see that not only you have the in-depth training, you get all the support documentation, you get the class recordings with lifetime access, and also you get the live support. So in case if you have any questions, you can ask and you will get the answer from me directly, or from one of our experienced students also. They can also chip in, right? Again, just to reiterate that if anybody else has joined late, if you want more detailed answers for your questions after this webinar, you can have a dedicated one-to-one session with Christian. So I have just pasted again the link into the chat. You can copy this, and then later you can decide which one do you want to discuss. So you can discuss about CCNA or CCIE or this Linux live course with Christian, and you can have a dedicated one-to-one 1 hour Zoom session with Christian to answer any kind of questions you have, right? So of course, there is no commitment there. You just need to join the Zoom session, and then you can ask whatever the questions you have, and then you can make up your mind. So the important thing, as I mentioned, is you get the lifetime access to recordings, so that in case if we add something later also, like if something new is added to the course, or some new labs are added to the course, you will be able to access those things, even if it is like already since it's been 3 years or 4 years. Because, for example, CCNA has been changed couple of times since 2018. Some of our students bought CCNA course in 2018. They are getting all the updates till now, and they will keep on getting it because of the lifetime access. And the same concept applies to Linux as well, right? Right. So what exactly are we going to cover in the basics course? So as I mentioned, that there is an in-depth 1 year, 52 weeks course as well. But this one, we wanted to make sure that we get you on board Linux, and then you start using Linux with some certain level of CLI expertise as well. So what we will cover in this course is, first of all, the introduction to the Linux, like what exactly Linux is, a little bit of history of Linux, what is Linux kernel, what are the Linux distros, and what is the desktop environment. We also call it GUI, or graphical user interface of Linux. We'll also cover a very important topic of Linux partitions and directories. So when you create Linux partitions, you need to decide the file system, like exactly what is the difference between ext2, 3, 4, or XFS file system. How are they different from NTFS or MS-DOS that we use in Microsoft file systems? And what are these different directories which are created when we install Linux first time? We see the root directory, then there is boot, home directory, temp directory, opt. So what are the objectives of these different directories, /var, /home, and which of these directories are important for our day-to-day work? And where exactly can you actually do your own projects? All these things will be explained here in this part as well. About the partitions, when you install Linux, that time either you can leave it to the system to decide partitioning for you of your hard disk drive, or you can decide the partition size and what partitions would you need. Generally, people use one partition for the root drive, and then one for the small one separate for the boot, and one for the home directory, because all your files and folders, your personal projects will be in the home directory, So that's generally kept separate. But you can see that these are just the best practices. Again, it depends on your personal choice, or you can leave it to the Linux operating system as well. So these things also we are going to discuss, and we will see pros and cons of these. And of course, then comes the practical part. So we will do a Linux installation, and you will see that there are many different distros, but there are two primary trees of distros, you can say. One is the Red Hat based, and another one is a Debian based. So any other distro you see, for example, if you are using Linux Mint or Pop OS, that means you are using Ubuntu based, which is basically Debian based distros. Or if you are using Rocky Linux or Alma Linux, then you are using or CentOS, for example. These are all Red Hat based Linux and Red Hat based distros, you can call it. So we will see what is the differences between these and the installation part. But although installation in both cases is pretty much same, there is not much difference there. But yeah, in installation, we will discuss the details and the importance of GUI installation and CLI only installation. So if you're using your Linux for the server purpose, like using it as a server, then mostly we just keep it CLI because GUI is just going to eat extra resources. And generally, it is going to be accessed from remote locations. Nobody is going to directly log into the server or its desktop. So we'll see the difference between those as well. And then, of course, we'll start with the commands, introduction to CLI and basic commands. And we'll also talk about the package managers, because in the distros, the package managers are different from each other. For example, one Debian-based distros have the package manager called apt. We use the command apt installed, apt remove, apt list. So apt or apt command is used. But in Red Hat based distros, we use yum or dnf. So there is slight differences between package managers, and then you have low level package managers like RPM. So we will get a basic idea about these things as well. And introduction to the Linux file system. So file system we discussed already: ext2, ext3, ext4, xfs file system, btrfs file system, and the comparison to Microsoft file systems in this case. Then we will get to a little bit more advanced stuff like creating user accounts and group accounts. If you are an administrator and you want to create different user accounts for different purposes, you can actually do that, and you can group them together for applying file permissions. So file and directory permissions is a big topic, very important topic, and we are going to make sure that we cover it in detail. So you will see that when you are going through all these, we will also have some labs. So not only I'm going to give you the details of all the commands and their options, so you have the record. I'll also going to teach you how exactly you can use the manual pages and the help in Linux so that you can also find out more about these commands and how to use them. But I will also give you some labs. For example, just to give you an example, we will have a lab like this where there will be instructions what exactly you need to do, like a project, mini project, you can call it. You have to create some files, you have to add some values to the files, you need to compare them, find some information there, you need to do completion for those files, and then you'll see that there will be some solution also for the in the same file. So you can actually practice these things using Linux knowledge that you have gained in this course. We'll also talk about editors. So you will see that there are many different editors you can use in Linux. There is Nano, Emacs, VI, and many third-party editors as well. But Nano and VI are two core editors, I would say, because Nano is a simple one. You can use it very easily. And it is easier to use because it uses some functions just like an older notepad, you can say. VI, on the other hand, is a very powerful but difficult to learn, or has a learning curve basically editor, and this one needs a little bit of this one needs a little bit of practice. So we will see how we can use that, but once you master VI, you will see that that is the only one you will always use, at least that's how I see it. But maybe you like Nano, but absolutely there is no issue in using Nano or Emacs or any other editor as well. Also, we are going to cover something very interesting and very important, which is networking basics, because networking is very important in any kind of job you are going to go and get into this part, like system administration, network administration, security administration. Everywhere networking is involved, right? So some basic level of networking is important, and that's why we will see how we can configure the interfaces with IP addressing. What is IP addressing? How we can actually enable communication? How we can log in from one Linux server to another Linux server, and also how we can share the resources between them. Although sharing resources is an advanced topic like NFS and all, we will not cover that here. But just to show you that we will have the reachability so that we can understand the logic of IP addressing, networks, subnets, and all these concepts, right? Also, at the end of this course, we will see a project also where we will do the installation of a complete service. So generally, Linux is very popular as a server. It is being used as server everywhere. So we are also going to create our own web server, and how we can do it, what are the steps to do it, and how we can access our web pages once the web service is already up and running. So you can see that once you finish this course, if you are just starting with Linux, you will have much more confidence in the basic day-to-day tasks, and you will be ready to take your next step if you want to go for the certifications. And then, of course, we also have a 52 weeks program, in-depth program, where we take you all the way to the Red Hat certified system administrator first, and then Red Hat certified engineer, RHCE certification. So there we talk about more detailed topics as well, like containers, Ansible configuration, Ansible configuration management, and all the different kind of server installation, KVM installation. These things will be covered there as well, right? Now, what tools are we going to use for this? So, to be honest, you are going to practice with a virtual machine first, because I would not recommend you to do a dual boot partition or anything on your main machine as of now, unless until you get more detailed information. And if you decide to use Linux as your daily driver, then you can use like Linux Mint would be my recommendation if you want to use it on your main machine. But for this course, we are just going to install VMware Workstation Player, which is a free hypervisor software, and it allows you to create virtual machines inside your Windows operating system. And I would recommend to use the Windows machine initially if you are new to Linux, and then you can use the VMware to play around with Linux. If you mess up something, you can always spin up a new virtual machine, and that's where you can learn it easily, right? So we will use VMware Workstation Player, and individual Linux operating system will be installed directly inside the VMware using their ISO files. So I will also give you some recommendation into the course which Linux OS you should use. For example, I use Rocky Linux or actual Red Hat Enterprise Linux. In case of Debian-based Ubuntu or Linux Mint, if you are looking for more GUI-based operating system, or in Red Hat base, we can use Fedora. So all these recommendations and the links to download their ISO files also I'll give you, because these are open source softwares, free softwares. You can download them and start installation. And since we will learn installation, so definitely we can use it. One of the benefits you will see of VMware Workstation Player is if you install multiple Linux operating systems, you can use the VMware networking to connect them to each other. So that we can do the networking practical as well, where we enable communication between different Linux operating systems, right? So that will be a benefit there. And the network type should be set to network address translation in VMware. That is something I'll explain you into the course as well, so that you can get an IP address on the Linux server, which will have accessibility to the internet also. So from within your virtual machine, you will be able to use your host machine to go to the internet and update your packages, upgrade your Linux operating system, and basic internet connectivity from your virtual machine. You'll be able to gain, right? And this will also allow the Linux and the host machine to communicate as well, right? Again, if anybody has just joined, make sure that if you have any questions or more questions, then what you can do is you can have a dedicated one-to-one session with my partner, training partner Christian. So I have just pasted the links again. So make sure you copy them and keep it with you, and maybe you can schedule it later. But if maybe after the webinar you might not be able to find the chat, or you might find it difficult to get the chat. So just copy this and keep it with you guys, and then you can book a one-to-one session to get more insight, or to get all your questions answered, technical or non-technical, whether it is for CCNA, CCIE, or Linux course, right? From most part of the course, only one Linux machine would be enough, to be honest, because, for example, creating user accounts, or dealing with permissions, uh, or file management, partition management, a single Linux machine would be enough to do that. But for networking part, for enabling communication between two devices, we will need a server and a client, right? So we will Like maybe we want to do the secure shell open SSH connection also from one device to another device. In that case, you will need two machines, maybe a later part of the course. Also, VMware is the recommended software because that's what we also use. So maybe if you get some issues, we will be able to more efficiently help you in fixing those things. But if you decide to use VirtualBox, which is Oracle VirtualBox, another hypervisor solution, you can use the bridge mode for the networking. So just to give you an example, when you install Linux into VMware and you go to the properties of that virtual machine, you can set the RAM. How much RAM do you want? You can see on the right hand side. For example, I'm using 4 gig RAM. So if you are just going to use CLI, even 2 gig RAM will be more than sufficient. But if you are going to use GUI, for example, Linux Mint or GUI heavy Pop OS operating system, Fedora, then it's better to use at least 4 gig of RAM for them. And for networking, make sure that network adapter is set to net, as you can see on the left hand side, right? So these settings, again, I'm going to explain this when the course starts, but just to give you an idea, right? Just to give you a basic introduction to the Linux also, is that it's a family of free and open source operating systems based on Linux kernel. So these are actually based on Linux kernel, but they are slightly changed. The shell which the kernel is connected to, that shell is slightly changed. Their package managers are slightly different, and that's why they are called different Linux distributions or distros. So there are literally hundreds of Linux distros, thousands of Linux distros available because they just slightly tweak the GUI, tweak the upper shell, outer shell, but the kernel they still utilize Linux kernel, right? The kernel itself was initially released in back in 1991 by Linus Torvald, and it's a free and open source operating system under the GNU General Public License, right? Initially, it was created for personal computers, but ironically, of course, now most of the servers are based on Linux because Linux is very, very stable and there are less attacks, less prone to security issues. But of course, you still need to configure security in Linux as well. But you don't have any executable files like exe files, which can create issues. The binaries are also normal files. You can open them as well. But everything in Linux is a file, by the way. But it's less susceptible to attacks. So now you can see it is used in servers, mainframe, supercomputers, and nowadays it is also used in routers, automation control, TV, DVR devices, video games, smartwatches. And the biggest success of Linux is the Android operating system that we use in all Android phones. That Android is completely a Linux operating system based on Linux. You can see that Linux is actually based on Unix, which was created in 1969, and Unix was created in C language. So you can see how powerful the C language is. It's the mother of all languages. But it was a paid operating system. You had to purchase it. It was not free. So Linus created something completely free. You can see in 1991. You can see 1981 MS-DOS was released. Apple was in 1984. Mac OS in 2001. So 1991 was a milestone because that's where the Linux started. And then the distros started after that. So as I told you, there are literally hundreds of distros, so you can get overwhelmed with that. But to understand the distros, you just need to categorize them into different types. So you can see that Linux kernel is packaged into one of the distros, which creates the outer layer of the operating system, and it is made of collection of software based on Linux kernel. We call the packages, right? In Linux, they are called packages. So you can also say that Linux distribution contains the Linux kernel and the supporting libraries and the packages or softwares which are unique to that distro, and that's what makes it different, right? But there are three different types of distros you will see. Core distros, which are basically are core for every other distro. Specialized distros, which are used for some specific purpose, like if you want to get into more networking specifics or if you want to do it yourself kind of thing, then you can use Gentoo Linux or Gentoo Linux, or you can use Arch Linux if you want to build everything up from the scratch. And then there are some live CD distros as well, where you can run them completely from the CD drive, CD, or you can create a bootable USB as well. And you don't need to necessarily install them on your hard disk drive. So you don't need to remember all the hundreds of distros, but there are few major distros that are going to be very important in our course. For example, you must have heard about Ubuntu, Linux Mint, or MX Linux. These are considered the easiest for new users because they also have a very nice GUI, graphical user interface. As a matter of fact, Linux Mint also supports different codecs for media playing. So watching Netflix or watching movies, or checking photos, all it becomes smoother on the Linux Mint. So you can see it is more for the client side, not as a server solution. But having said that, it's a complete Linux kernel, so you can make a Linux Mint a full-fledged server also. Nobody's stopping you from that. But it also supports the client side things like as you would expect from a Windows 11 PC, right? That I want to do some documentation editing. I also want to watch some movies. And I should be able to do both. I should be able to connect my Bluetooth devices, also my webcam. Linux Mint or Pop OS or MX Linux are very easy for that. And they are actually based on Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is basically somewhere in the middle. It is a great server. Many actually servers are based on Ubuntu, but it can also be used as a daily driver. If you go a little bit further, not further actually, if you go to the other extreme of the thing, not easy, complex part, then you will see Arch Linux, N2 or Slackware Linux. These are advanced distros which need comprehensive knowledge of Linux before they can be used effectively, because you need to build them from grounds up. And it's a great project, to be honest. Once you have the basic knowledge of Linux and you think you are good to go with some of the daily tasks, then you can maybe take it as a project to set up Arch Linux or Gentoo, because what will happen is that it is going to make your life very difficult in the Linux realm, because everything is a challenge. But it's a great learning curve as well. It's a great learning experience. You will come out as a better Linux user after that for sure. And then we have the middle ground, not so easy, not so difficult. OpenSUSE, Fedora, RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or Debian. These can be considered mid-level distros based on the difficulty and the learning curve that you have to go through for these. So in these ones, you will see that Linux, the Debian one, or the Debian-based Linux are very popular as well, because as I told you, Ubuntu is also based on this. Pop OS, Linux Mint, they are ultimately Debian-based. And the difference is in Debian-based Linux, you will see that it uses something called apt for installing the packages, and also it has three different branches: unstable, testing, and stable branch. So, for example, Ubuntu is created based on Debian unstable state branch, like that, right? So it's not officially supported by Debian, but it's pretty stable anyway. Debian itself is also very stable. High level of quality control is there, and you can see it was created just a couple of years after Linux kernel was created. So it's a very old and stable distro. It supports more processor architecture than any other Linux distribution. But the problem is newer technologies are not always included and could be slow in the release cycle, right? Another one I want to talk about is Linux, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or Fedora, it used to be called back in the days. And Red Hat Linux was the original name. And it actually introduced RPM package manager, which also is used by many other distros, which are dependent or which are based on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So this is a low level package manager, which actually doesn't resolve any dependencies. So if you're installing a package and it needs two more packages to be already installed, the installation will fail. You need to resolve the dependencies yourself. That's why every distro creates a high level package manager also. Like in Red Hat, it is Yum or DNF, or in Ubuntu or Debian, it is apt, where they are going to find and resolve all the dependencies and install all the codependent packages for you to complete the installation. So it becomes easier that way. Fedora was highly innovative, and now also you will see that it's a testing bed for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which is a server-side solution. So Fedora is you will see is the upstream, sorry, it's the downstream operating system for that. Means all the experiments happen into the Fedora, and then they go to the CentOS stream, and then from there they go to the official Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which is the paid version. Although Red Hat Enterprise Linux is also not paid, it's completely free, but the support is on the subscription base, right? So then some other things, like it has outstanding security features, long number of supported packages, and 10 store enterprise features, and the test bed for RHEL, as I mentioned earlier. But RHEL itself is very important, because if you want to go further and want to do some certifications, the Red Hat certifications are industry standard, the best certifications, most recognized. So I definitely recommend that. And our course also, we have 52 weeks in-depth course as well, which is a pre-recorded course, but that takes you all the way to RHCE Achievement. RHCE, right? So this one is the downstream distribution of Fedora and CentOS streams. So first of all, Fedora and CentOS streams are the test beds for features, what works, what doesn't work, what is stable, what is not stable, and then those are sent to RHEL. It is commercially backed and supported, so subscription based, or you can purchase subscription for that. And support for this is generally for 10 years or more. So it's a very stable server, and this is also widely implemented. Free developers license is available. So if you want to use it for free, you can actually do it for a small office, home office. I think up to 16 servers you can create for free. A free developer license is available, which also I will explain in the class how you can do it. So if you want to use RHEL for your practice or your course labs, you can definitely do that. But if you don't want to do this, you can also use Rocky Linux. Rocky Linux actually bug by bug copy of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and it is completely free, no registration, no licensing required at all. So you can use Rocky Linux as well. And it uses actually RPM based DNF utility, as I mentioned earlier, and that is a distro that will be the best for you. And let me give you an example also of Rocky Linux. So I think I have it running somewhere. Yeah, you can see that this is Rocky Linux, and this one is exactly the copy of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, the latest one that you are using. So if you check /etc/os release, you will see that it is currently using version 9.4. So if you will check, Red Hat Enterprise Linux has also released 9.4, the latest version yet. So the Rocky Linux has immediately released their implementation as well. So if you are practicing for even for certification of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, you can actually use this one, and you can rest assured the same commands and features will be supported on Red Hat Enterprise Linux as well, right? About myself, I have been in training industry for more than actually 18 years now, and I started with the Windows trainings, and then I moved to Linux training, and then I also Cisco training, CCIE training, as I mentioned earlier in the class. I also work as a consultant with various organizations, mostly service providers. So I keep an eye on the latest technologies being used, new software-defined networking technologies, or where are they using the different kind of information like Terraform or any kind of container-based applications they're using, Docker or Kubernetes. So all these things I try to keep an eye on and make sure that if there is anything new and worthy to include into the courses, I do include there as well. Although it's a cliche, as I always say, but training is my passion. And Christian also, we like to help people to get more knowledge, get more confident, become more comfortable basically with the technology. And that's why the support is very important for us. That means we provide support to students. So we not only actually just impart the trainings, but we also make sure that you get ample support in your journey to become a better network administrator or a system administrator, right? So having said that, that's it for from the presentation today. So if you have any questions, I would highly recommend to book a Zoom session with Christian, and he will be more than happy to help you there. And that's it from my side. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a good night.